Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cryptic Commander. I am your host, John Nosey, and I've got an announcement for you guys today. I'll let you know that we had a subject bring up in our Facebook group about bringing on somebody that doesn't know anything about Magic the Gathering, teaching them off air, and then bringing them in and asking their opinions. So we found that person. His name's Mark, and I think he's going to be on tomorrow's show. So I wanted to give you guys the heads up on that. It's a big announcement. All right. And we actually have a guest with us today. Our guest today is a legend, and some would consider him to be the king of Cube. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce you to Usman Jamil.
Hello. I'm just a 1/1 soldier. I'm not legend. Certainly not the king of Cube. Maybe a 2/2? I don't know. I think I'm just a 1/1.
Oh, man, all the 2/2 jokes, you know. It reminds me, I was going to say, Amaket, I wish they brought out King Tut as a 2/2 uncommon.
Ah, nice. Yeah.
Usman, welcome to the Cryptic Commander podcast. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I can't complain, man. I'm hanging in there like a loose tooth. Just trying to make its way back into the groove.
I like it. Nice.
Thanks. So we've got a couple of questions for you today, and just want to get right into it. Let me see here. The legend rule changed. So in past Magic, we had a legendary rule where a legendary creature can be on the field, and if one of your opponents played one, or if you played one, one of them would blow up. And in recent changes, they made it to where each person can put down a legendary creature or a planeswalker, with the same name as each other. I was going to ask you what's your opinion on that.
So, it's kind of weird. Like, I forget the exact reasoning why, like, they came up with, like, the very first legend rule, which essentially was just, like, if you play something, then your opponent is just locked out from playing it. I remember, like, I forget the exact progression, but I remember I've been playing Magic for starting revised and Fallen Empires. I guess that's like 94-ish.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds right.
Right.
And I think the legend rule at the time was like, if somebody plays a legend, that's it. Because story-wise, it would be like, there's only one Nicol Bolas, or there's only one, whatever, Greven Ilvek or whatever. There's only one, so nobody else can have one, which, like, thematically makes sense. But you'd end up in these weird actual gameplay scenarios. And this was during the years when I quit Magic. But I can imagine it being bad. Like, what was that? No, like in Rebels, for example, like, that was, like, the big deck during Mercadian Masks. And, like, if somebody got, it was, like, the Rebels Mirror, and one person got out of Lin Civi, that was it. Your opponent couldn't really do anything unless they found a way to get rid of it. So it was just like, oh, okay, cool. Opponent's got a Lin Civi, and then they can just, like, grind out ad infinitum forever and ever. And, just like your... And I feel like one of the worlds, I want to say, like, it was decided by somebody getting out of Necroma, and the other person couldn't. So it was just, like, really, like, flavor-wise, it makes sense. But in terms of gameplay, it seemed like it was really, really terrible. I wasn't playing at the time. I got back into the game around the time when they made the next change, which I think was, like, I forget if it was around Kamigawa, and I think it was
wow.
like,
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was like when two walkers see each other, or two legendaries see each other, they die because the reasons. I mean, I guess it's like they wanted to make sure that legendary cards were going to see play, and it wasn't just a situation where one person plays an Isamaru and the other person's doing nothing. So it was kind of, flavor-wise, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like, one legendary person sees another legendary person, and then they both somehow die. Like, what? It doesn't really make much sense, but it makes more sense balance-wise for gameplay. I want to say there was like an whatever those videos that Nathan Holt did, like Enters the Battlefield or something, or forget what the series was.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Where it was just like, it's just like saying like the one and only legendary Geist of Saint Traft, like one person played, and then it was like the other person played his own legendary Geist of Saint Traft, which caused a temporal time warp or something, and then they both ceased to exist or something.
Yeah.
Which kind of like, yeah, shows how just ridiculous it is flavor-wise, but in terms of gameplay, at least it seemed like it makes more sense in, like, and I don't really play much Commander, unfortunately. I think I've played it, I'm trying to say, maybe 4 or 5 times, and most of the times when I did, it was just, like, after F&M, and I would pretty much just take 100 cards from my cube and just essentially play Progenitus, quote-unquote.
Right. Yeah.
And then I think one time it happened, and it got 4 spiked, and I was like, all right, cool. I was like, this feels good.
I've been guilty of taking some cards out of my cube and going to build a Commander deck out of it, too. I know what you mean by there.
Yeah, I was just like, all right, we'll do this, and then I'm trying to think of the other one. I think they retconned Planeswalkers to be legendary, so that, I guess it was around Ixalan because of Cunning Castaway, so that, there was the whole, I forget exactly the timing, but I think every time it's been changed, it's, at least it made more sense. Like, in Cube, it's not really so much of a thing because, it essentially stopped cards like Phantasmal Image and whatever from being Doomblades. It was always awkward when your opponent played a Thrun, and then you would just play Phantasmal Image, and it would just die, and be like, okay, nice Thrun there. I'll just kill it for 2 mana.
What?
And it was just like,
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, because you can't target Thrun, but clones don't target. They just say choose a card that's in play. Choose a creature. I think there's probably some historical precedence to it, but I think most of the clones, there's probably a Cackling Counterpart because that targets, but most of them don't. It's just choose a creature. So yeah, you just choose Thrun, and then it's the same reason you can clone a True Name Nemesis or something. It's okay, but at least in Cube, it seems like it's been better. I never really encountered the issues where you have a bunch of Jaces or you have a bunch of Gideons.
Right.
It really didn't impact too much in terms of actual design, but it usually would just change things kind of on the more micro level where it happens in game, where it's you have a Gideon of the Trials, which somehow is $25 now, I guess because of Inverter, which is weird.
Yeah, I mean, the prices really boggle my mind too. Pioneer is getting to be a thing, and that really fluctuates the market too.
Yeah, I had a bunch of Rabble Masters that I bought a long time ago before people knew it was good for cheap, and then I just never sold them at the time, and then they've just been in a binder for a long time, and now they're worth something. So I feel bad. I feel good about being lazy in that scenario. Nice, it worked out.
What has surprised you most about Magic's evolution as a whole? Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. In terms of Magic's evolution, I'd say the thing that surprised me most was probably I guess how they've made the game, and I don't say this in a bad way, but just how it's become. The term I'm thinking is become more mainstream, even though it's not really the best term, but it's kind of maybe even just getting more popular. Whenever we would play Cube at Denny's, people would be oh man, I used to play that in the 90s or whatever. And it's sometimes you'll see Magic kind of by people who haven't played it in forever, just remember it from high school or something. like they will remember, it'll kind of get lumped with stuff like Pogs and, like other stupid stuff from the 90s.
Right.
But like Magic's significantly more popular now, especially with like Arena.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I didn't mean to cut you off. Is we found a stat the other day that Hasbro made an announcement that there's currently 3 million people playing Magic Arena. That's what they estimate, and by the end of next year, they estimate 11 million players.
Wow. Yeah, I could believe it. Yeah. Yeah, they've definitely. I think they were kind of hampered by the Magic Online client. Like, it was one of those things where it had a big learning curve, and if you weren't really into Magic, like, it was really hard to watch, kind of thing. Like, a lot of the times at night, I'll be watching Magic streams, and, the difference between being able to watch Arena and being able to watch, like, a draft on Moto is just, like, night and day.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah.
I was going to say, especially if it's a format you're not really familiar with. Like, if it's a format like if you're very familiar with the decks in Standard or something, or in Modern or whatever, like, you can follow it pretty easily. But if it's, like, a new format, like a new draft format, and you don't know what half the cards do, it's like, all right, so what? Because it then becomes a lot harder to figure out, what actually matters in a match, and, like, what permanents are there, and like Arena has made it a lot easier too. It's also just a lot more fluid and dynamic, and I think that has helped the game as well. Like, for a while, I pretty much, my main interest still is Cube, but for a while, I just didn't play really. I played Draft for a while, like when I got back in the game during Kamigawa. From like then until probably like 2009-ish, whenever Alara came out, like I pretty much just did Draft. And then only recently have I guess within the past year or so, I played Arena, and like, I think I put like $5 into it, but I've just been doing the free-to-play thing.
Right.
And I hit Mythic.
Oh, wow.
I hit Mythic in December. And I was like, I hit, where you get the percentage. I'm like, all right, so I guess I might as well do the whatever thing. And like, I think I got to like 350 or something. And then was like, all right, am I safe? Like, I don't really feel like just like losing a whole bunch of rank. I'd rather just
stop.
Which is kind of an awkward. Yeah, I'm just like, all right, I'm going to go and stake my claim and then ride it out. And then I think I ended up in like 900, which is still fine.
Right, it's not
I wanted anyway.
Right.
And then I did the event and like promptly scrubbed out at 1 and 2. And I was like, all right, I got some gems out of it at least.
So I remember.
But I never.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I remember a long time ago, I built my own cube, and I know it's not talking about Magic the Gathering Arena, but when I started building my cube, I saw videos. I'm not sure if you're aware of Tulare Community College. With Professor. Okay, so they have some videos out there, explaining what a cube is, and pretty much they have advanced videos too. I watched those over and over, and then I after I did some digging and I did some research, your name popped up, and I started listening to podcasts, and I start building my own cube, and I heeded your advice. But what advice can you give to new cube players or someone that's building a cube right now?
So the big one I'd probably say is don't be afraid to change things. Like, I've been doing cubes for, I don't know, I'd say at least, probably at this point, it'd probably be about a decade. And even still, if I make a new cube, like, so much of it changes just because it's kind of like when a new set comes out. If you think of it this way, think of a new set that comes out, like new Theros or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you have no idea how you can make guesses on how it's going to impact the meta. It would be like, all right, Underworld Breach is going to do something somewhere. New Elspeth is going to be good, unless like I don't know, people thought it was bad apparently. And I remember testing it out in Cube like as soon as it was previewed. I'm like, this looks weird, but I'll try it. And then like kept getting reps with it. And I'm like, yeah, this card's absurd.
Yeah.
And it was just like, but a lot of it's just kind of estimated guesses in terms of like a constructed meta. It'd be like, will Rankle make mono black aggro a thing? I don't know, maybe. There's a bunch of changes. And essentially you're doing that for a cube, is that you're essentially designing a metagame. And even though you'll have estimations on what will work, especially if you're kind of like dipping your toe into unfamiliar territory, like
right.
even a rarity restricted cube like a pauper or peasant or some other kind of constraint cube, like it's even harder to make those kind of guesstimations because it's like, I remember like, it's just like, how is mono black going to do? And it's like at this point, sometimes I can look at a list and just like see like 3 1-drops in their red section or white section. I'm just like, okay, white, whatever aggro is probably going to be a trap. But for the most part, a lot of it's just kind of like guessing, doing some drafts, getting your feet wet, and not being afraid to make changes. Sometimes I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, so with that being said, what do you think is the most pivotal change in recent cube history?
Most pivotal. So I think there's been a few, big changes, like not to toot my own horn, but I think when I started talking about doing actual work to support aggressive decks, I think like that's a pivotal thing because most people were just like, White Knight sucks on turn 12 or something. There's some old Channel Fireball video with Tristan Sean Regson and Machi talking about that, and it was just like, no, like what? That's not the game plan. You don't want to get to turn 12, but
right, yeah, nobody wants to get to turn 12.
Yeah, and it's just like stuff like that. I think when Magic Online came out with some of their cubes, like there were a lot of cards that hadn't seen play in a lot of cubes because they weren't really good in quote unquote retail draft. Kind of like a lot of examples are cards like Show and Tell, Sneak Attack,
yeah,
Natural Order, and like stuff like that, where it's just like it isn't really great in retail draft kind of thing, or it's just like hard to make it work in retail draft, but it's just like approaching it from a standard perspective or constructive perspective of essentially constructing decks rather than like in a lot of retail formats for limited, for the sake of simplicity, you're building like a pile of cards. Even though they've kind of started to embrace that more in recent years, probably like starting with like, I want to say like M12 or like M11, where they try to give color pairs an archetype. And sometimes it gets kind of like a bit ham-fisted and sometimes it doesn't work. But I think some of that has been kind of done with cube in mind. And of course, like the master sets generally are very like cube influenced in terms of like designing to archetype kind of thing.
They're almost their own cube in a way.
In a way, yeah. There's still like, it's still hard to like construct like actual aggressive decks. Planeswalkers are still really good because removal is not that great usually. And usually it's just the aggressive decks aren't there to keep it in check. I'd say probably stuff like that. And I'd probably say the third most pivotal change I've seen in Cube has been kind of like in the past year or so. Like in these Cube groups that I've been in, have been kind of talking about like how to make like green mid-range work more. There's a video kind of outlining it. His name's Cube for Two. He does YouTube videos. Kind of talked about what's called like Unga Bunga theory. Essentially, trying to leverage Green's mid-range game plan by not just like playing just stuff at sorcery speed that just dies to 1-for-1 removal, because the control game plan could play around that super well. So it was kind of like working Green's game plan with like creatures like Flash or like resilient threats. Like I think that's been like that, and just like embracing more cantrips and stuff. It's part of this cube group that I'm in called MTG Cube Brainstorming, and you know, some of the members like Sir Funchalot have been really pivotal in kind of developing that, and I think that's been another. So I'd say probably those three. That's my cop-out answer for most pivotal. So there you go.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I mean, really, you got more in depth with it than I thought you were going to. I mean, again, you are the king of Cube. Where do you see the game as, you know, Magic the Gathering in a year, 5 years, 10 years?
So it's kind of weird. I'm not really sure where it's going to be, and I'm unsure of where they're going to be in the short term versus like long term kind of thing, because 2019 was, I'm not entirely sure how it was well received by a lot of people, like
Right.
in terms of Magic, just because it was just like so many sets coming out and it just changed so much.
Right.
And sometimes like people will look at a data point and then get like, they'll take out their frustrations on that. I guess that's for something like which felt kind of weird, like the core set in this year, the summer core set, which is called 2021, right, for reasons, because Madden games do that or whatever. It doesn't make sense,
Yeah, I remember when they did the whole Magic 2010. Oh, it was 10th edition, and then Magic 2010. Then they went M19. You know what I'm saying? They went M19, M18.
Yeah, it was just like, what? It was just like, because cars do it, and I'm like, you know, if you see somebody or know somebody who isn't really immersed in Magic, and they see like Game Day 2020 and like Core Set 20, it's like, what? This doesn't make sense.
Right.
But it like felt like when they had that video trailer where like Teferi was going to be the big, you know, centerpiece of that set, and it kind of felt weird because it felt like people were getting burned out on him because of how good his cards have been in Standard.
Yeah.
And like, I know that kind of happened with like the Gatewatch too, where it was kind of like pejoratively referred to as like the Justice League, where it's just like, okay, here's the Gatewatch coming here, and then they stop the thing, and then they go to the next plane, and then whatever happens, and then people got burned out on it. Then they pulled it way back in the next few years, and you know, it just seems like some of the stuff they've been doing lately has been kind of more short-term based, like the Secret Lair stuff. I don't think it's bad per se, but it's, you know, it's like that old meme of like Shigeru Miyamoto and like
the creator
Shigeru Iwata, where it's just like it prints money, and it's just like, yeah, I mean, it works, sure.
You're talking about Miyamoto making the guy that made Super Mario Brothers, right?
Yeah. There's like an old meme where it's just like him and Iwata holding like a DS or something, and there's just like money coming out of it. Says like it prints money. There's like a GIF of it. It's probably somewhere. It's relatively old. It's probably from like 2008-ish. That sounds right.
Sure.
It was just like that, where it prints money, and that's essentially what Secret Lairs do. It's like it prints money, but like that makes sense. Like,
yeah,
I'm just not sure. I feel like Magic in the next year, 5 years, will probably be them figuring out where the wallet price point is for most Magic players. Because, like, you know, if I was, you know, a college kid, you know, there's no way I could afford to play Magic. Even like, you know, even if I was like playing Standard or something, and then finding out Oko was banned.
Yeah.
Like,
I got to change my deck.
Like it was just like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do, because like when they find out, the price of it tanks. So you have to either wait for the market to adjust so that you can sell it at a decent price, or you're just out of luck. And it's like, you know, if you're an adult, that's probably fine. But if you're
Yeah.
like a 20-year-old kid who's in college, like that's a lot harder. And like for arena, that's fine. That also kind of shapes things too, where it's just like, okay, I'll just grind for more wild cards. Like whatever, that's fine.
Right.
So I think that's probably where Magic's going to be, like figuring out the price point.
So going back to cube, cubes are often difficult to fire, and the same could be said about EDH commander circles. But cultivating a healthy play group around Magic the Gathering, a limited cube EDH, it can be a tough order. Would you have any suggestions for people that are coming across these issues?
You know, I was about to say I'm pretty much having the same issues now. Like, you know, we have a consistent group. We haven't had a time when we've just had to just straight up cancel, but usually, like, the best advice I can really give is regularity. Like, if you're trying to cultivate some kind of group thing in whichever format or whichever, is just like doing it and doing it with regularity, which is kind of like this weird paradox because, like, say you're playing EDH, or for Cube, I'd probably speak more to, but like 4 is kind of like the magic number where you can like get a round robin. It's not great, but it's like infinitely better than 3, where it's just like you can have a round robin, but somebody always gets the bye, which is like, you know, it's like essentially A plays B, B plays C, A plays C, and then for each of those games, like somebody's sitting out. It's not optimal or good. It's just the kind of thing, but like at least for getting kind of cube regularity, it's kind of these weird situations where if you don't have a stable group as is, like if you have 4 people, you're really reliant on those 4 people showing up. And if like one person doesn't show up, it's just like you might not fire. And if you're doing it at like a store or something, somebody drives like 20 minutes to get there, and there's like, nope, sorry, they had to cancel. Like they're probably not going to show up next week,
Right.
or ever. And it's just like this kind of paradox where it's like, well, it's kind of like the rich get richer, poor get poorer kind of situation. Although at least for EDH, it's usually like you just need 2 people. I think. I guess. I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know how much better 1v1 is versus like 4-player. I'm guessing it's probably significantly, but at least it's not unplayable with 2.
Well, yeah, I've done a Winston draft. I've done Glimpse draft. Oh, I'm talking about Cube.
Yeah.
With 2 people. With 2 people, I've done a Winston draft, Glimpse draft, and then there's the Pancake draft.
Yeah, I've not really been a big fan of Winston draft.
Yeah, when I learned it, I didn't like it after about 2 or 3 games. Yeah.
Every deck kind of looks the same. Like it just ends up being like piles of stuff, which I think was more understandable in the limited era when it was kind of designed, and you know, for cubes when they were a lot more nebulous, and you would just essentially make good stuff decks where it's just like, here's my Grixis control deck versus your Jund deck, and it didn't really matter. Like you didn't need to worry about critical mass of 1-drops or whatever for your aggro deck. It was just like pile of cards, which is why I've never really liked Winston. I think I've done, I forget if I haven't really done Glimpse before. I've done like,
it's the best, in my opinion. I've done a lot of drafting with my cube, and big play groups, small play groups. I would say, in my opinion, Glimpse is by far the best.
Nice. Yeah, usually if I get like a small number of people, it's usually like, if we get like 4 people, I'll usually do like 9 packs of 5. And that usually tends to work out, just so you're not seeing the same pack like over and over and over and over. It's like, oh, yep, here's that pack. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's just,
one thing too, I didn't mean to cut you off. In my play group, we found the same thing. We'll change the order of how many packs we're going to have and how many we're going to put in each pack.
and that's a nice thing too about not being held to, like, you know, cube size, like pack sizes. You don't have to do 3 of 15. It's just you can just do literally whatever, which is nice.
This might seem like an odd question, but what if you had a small play group of like 3 people, and you guys draft your cube, and then after you're done, you build your deck, and you guys do a free for all.
I mean, there have been times when people do that. Like, that's probably fine. Like, for me, it's just never been a big thing because, like, if you do a free for all, like, aggressive decks get so much worse because, like, you pretty much, you know, especially if your opponents know that, like, if you play turn 1 Isamaru, your opponents are going to know what's up. It's like, okay,
yeah,
this person's going to try to kill one of us soon, and then I think that probably makes it a bit too homogenous. I've done, like, some multiplayer with my cube, and it's been, like, okay. I think I did, like, an Emperor draft of it once.
Nice.
And, yeah, like, I think the general or the Emperor for the other team was just, like, he essentially just built kind of, like, a bad control deck. He didn't really actually try to build a good Emperor deck.
Ooh.
Because, like, yeah, so their team was pretty bad, but, like,
right. Was he
I was
an
just like,
arm
all
or
right,
something?
so I was just like, I'll build a group hug deck, essentially. Just like, all right, here's some, you know, I'll just give you guys, like, soldier tokens and you know, hold down the fort with whatever. And I'm pretty sure our team won that draft just because they, you know, their team user errored on the, you know, like, how to play the format. And it was okay. Like, it wasn't bad. I wasn't like, this is awful. No, please end this. You know, it wasn't too bad, but it's also just because I tend to utilize cube data a lot when, I think that's another thing too, is just like when you're building a cube is, you know, even if it's just like taking pictures of your decks at the end of a draft and like putting some kind of note with a record, even if it's just like a small piece of paper that says like 1 and 3 or 2 and 2 or whatever, or 3 and 1, just like having that information, you know, because, you know, it's 2020, pretty much everybody has a cell phone with a decent camera.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it just takes really not much time, and just having that information is a huge thing that I didn't do during the early years, and I really wish I did.
I was building mine with the help of cubetutor.com, and I told a friend about it the other day, and I think the website's down.
Yeah, lately it seems like the cube site du jour is like cubecobra.com.
Yeah.
I still haven't ported my cube over to there because I'm lazy.
So Cube Cobra, I saw Cube Cobra yesterday when I was doing research on you.
Mm-hmm.
And so
yeah.
that's a place for new people to go to for Cube?
It's essentially another cube hosting site, but like it seemed like there was attempts to make a cube tutor alternative because people were seeing that it wasn't being updated, or, you know, just like other issues. And there was one like manaburn.org, which never really took off, and Cube Cobra, which did, and it seems like it's still being supported. I think the issue with a lot of them was just like somebody would get interest. They'd be like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah. And then they would get interested for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then they would just stop or just like do something and then never update it. And that's it.
Right.
And I mean, I understand, like, you know, Ben's probably got like other stuff going on, and, you know, at least I'm just kind of spitballing here, but, you know, maybe just be like his life isn't in a situation where like cube is a huge thing in his life anymore, because, you know, it's like 10 years ago, like, not a lot of people, you know, even like, yeah, I've been doing this for probably like 10-ish years, and I don't tend to see a whole lot of people sticking around for that long. Sometimes they'll get interested in cube and they'll be like, I'll just play, you know, life, or just, you know, life will happen. Like, they'll lose interest in Magic or whatever, and that's fine. Like, you know, life happens.
Right.
But I think Cube Cobra probably is going to stick around. I've liked it when I've used it. I just haven't ported my cubes over to there yet.
Right. It takes some time.
You know. Yeah, it just takes. Well, there's a if you have your Cube Tutor ID, I think there's a pretty easy function on Cube Cobra to export it from there. Like, I think you should be able to just port it over. There's like, I think it has a function to like enter your Cube Tutor ID and do it from there. It's kind of awkward too, because I used to have a 3-digit Cube Tutor ID.
Mm-hmm.
It was like 288. Yeah, it was. I think it was 288, and then like I accidentally deleted it, and because I was trying to delete one of my other cubes, like it was probably just like an old Pauper cube that I hadn't updated, and then there was no like "Are you sure?" text. It was just like, "Nope, it's deleted," and I was just like, uh-oh, and then yeah, I was kind of out of luck on there, so that was awkward. But yeah, plug for Cube Cobra.
I was going to ask if you had any plugs whatsoever. Go ahead.
I was about to say it's been, not a sponsor, I'm not really involved in like the development of it, but it's worked for people. It's worked when I've used it. Like it's been solid. It's been pretty stable. And it's worked. Like I give it a thumbs up.
That's really all the questions I had for you today, unless there's something else you wanted to add.
Not really. I guess in terms of Cube, or I guess even, I don't know if this adage applies as much to EDH, but it's just like in Cube, one of those things I've wondered, just always kind of just had as kind of just something that's kind of helped me as a designer is just don't be afraid of change. Even if something seems like it's always worked, don't be afraid to, be open-minded to something, for new developments, new ideas, to look to improvement, because like something can just be working for a while, but there's, ways it could be better. Sometimes don't be afraid to critically look at, your environment. Sometimes, it can be hard to look at your environment and be like, this deck isn't working, and trying to kind of reverse engineer it and make it work. It's kind of hard, but, it gets easier with time.
I agree with you.
I think that's it.
Fair assessment. I appreciate you coming on the show today, Usman. I really do.
Oh, sure. No problem.
And, we thank you guys for listening today. And if you guys want to give us any questions, comment, or criticism, please hop over on the Facebook group, YouTube. There's a couple different links. By now, you guys should already get it. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
For tuning in. And thanks, Usman.
Oh, sure. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
Yeah, and I think we've changed locations for Cube now. We do it at, I think, game night at 6:30 on Tuesdays.
And what is that location?
It's on Watson.
Where Chippewa?
It's near where Crestwood. I don't think it's near Chippewa. I think it's. Do you remember where Crestwood Mall is? Or was?
Well, Chippewa turns into Watson. That's what I mean. Like near Laclede Station Road, near or.
Trying to think what's around there.
Sure.
Do you remember where Crestwood Mall used to be before it became a parking lot?
Yeah.
It's in that area-ish.
Crestwood Mall on Gravois. Or Chippewa. Oh, wait. Watson?
Crestwood?
It's on Watson?
Yeah, it's on Watson. If you look up Game Night Watson,
yeah,
it should show the address there. But yeah, it's kind of in that kind of, I don't think of the area-ish, but I can't think of, I'm trying to think of like towns and whatever. I have no idea what town it is or whatever. But
I can do a quick Google search for the listeners too. Hold on one second here. So I'll just pull it up here. And that's St. Louis.
Yeah, it should be like Game Night. They have a TCG Player account, as far as I know.
And it's NITE, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they moved locations, but it should. I think the old address and the new one are close enough that it should have the new one anyway. But
all right. Yeah, here you go. It's 8380 Watson Road, St. Louis, Missouri 63119. If you want to phone them,
yeah, that sounds right.
314-270-8440. I think that's what, Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go, Usman.
All right, cool beans.
And we'd love to have you back on the show too, whenever you want.
Yeah, thanks. Like I said, I don't really do much EDH, so I don't know how good of a.
Oh no! Our show is not about EDH. It's actually about Magic the Gathering products and information to get out to the public, because getting correct information for the community makes Magic the Gathering better as a whole.
Yeah, that's true.
So that was the main focus for us putting this podcast together. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Ogre. Do you know Ogre?
Yeah, I was about to say, I remember him. I don't know where he is nowadays. Is he in Kentucky?
He's in Georgia right now, so he does travel a lot. He opened up a store. I forget where he opened up the store. Oh, he left Georgia. I'll talk to him here in a few minutes. I forget where he's at. I'll shoot you a personal.
Okay.
I'll shoot you a personal message. How about that?
All right, that works.
Yeah. So me and Ogre started this podcast. It was my idea, and Ogre wanted to support his friend, which is me. And of course, he's just really a co-host, and I'm doing this. And, we're scaling. We're upscaling. We've been on here for about 1 week. And we've already got Patreon supporters, and I'm just working on this no holds barred every day. We started with a cell phone, and I went out and bought the dynamic mic and everything else. So, absolutely.
I'm trying to think. Like, I don't know if they still are taking submissions. I know MTG Cast, like they were. That's where we have Third Power on. I haven't been on that site in years. We're hopefully going to record a new episode this weekend, maybe, or next weekend. But like, I think they should be taking submissions. I think they're owned by Hipsters as a host, like if they don't have anything, but I think it's just mtgcast.com. And like, that's a pretty easy way to get, the exposure and whatever.
No, it's great. I mean, it's already on the recording too. So, I mean, that's
nice.
That's great, man.
Awesome.
I keep hitting my microphone.
Yeah.
I keep hitting my microphone. I guess you got me nervous.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay, man. Well, Usman, again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but we had a blast. I learned a lot from you, man, and again, I can't do it without you guys. The community. We got to work together as a whole, stick together, and we don't want to put out false information. So whenever we're wrong, we ask the listeners or the viewers just to fill us in, and we admit when we're wrong. We're human too,
Yep.
All right, Usman. I will shoot you over a personal message, and I'll let you know where Ogre's at, because I totally forget where he's at right now.
Okay. Cool beans.
Cool beans. All right, man. Thanks for coming on the show today, bud.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Usman.
Sure. Thank you.
All right.